Usually when you walk into an art gallery to see classic Renaissance masterpieces,
Yeah.
you're bracing yourself for a very specific kind of visual experience.
Right, you have a set expectation.
Exactly. You expect these sweeping, airy scenes. I mean, perfect cerulean skies, glowing halos, maybe a serene rolling landscape in the background.
Beautiful, balanced.
Right. Everything is evenly lit, it's entirely balanced, and it's just offered up to you so you can admire every tiny, polite brushstroke.
Yeah, it is basically an aesthetic of total illumination. The whole goal of that era was harmony, right? The
Yeah.
artist really wanted to present an idealized version of the world.
A perfect world.
Exactly, a world where nothing is hidden from the viewer and, the divine feels distinctly separate from the dirt and the grime of everyday life.
But imagine turning a corner in that exact same gallery and just being confronted with a wall of absolute darkness.
Oh yeah, it's a shock.
It really is. The blue skies are completely gone. The majestic background architecture has just been swallowed by this pitch black void. And out of that heavy, suffocating darkness, a single, harsh, unforgiving beam of light strikes a face.
And not a perfect face, usually.
Right, a face that looks terrified or exhausted or just completely ordinary. It doesn't even feel like you're looking at a painting anymore.
What does it feel like?
Honestly, it feels like you've stumbled into a dangerous alleyway at midnight and someone just, bam, flicked on a high-powered flashlight.
That is such a good way to put it. And that visual shock to the system, that's exactly what we are dissecting today.
Welcome to this custom deep dive, everybody. So glad you, the learner, are joining us for this one. Our mission today is to explore a really fascinating breakdown from Anita Louise Hummel over at Anita Louise Art.
It's a great piece.
It really is. We're diving deep into how this one volatile, brawling, absolutely brilliant Italian artist completely rewired visual storytelling.
Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio.
That's the guy. And the crazy part is he didn't do it by inventing a new pigment or, a new kind of brush. He did it by discovering the narrative power of absolute crushing darkness.
The shadows did the work.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, because most of our listeners already know the basics of Renaissance art, right? We all know about chiaroscuro.
Right, that Italian term for light dark.
Yeah, that soft, gentle shading that, Leonardo da Vinci used on the Mona Lisa's cheekbones just to make her look three-dimensional.
Soft, realistic modeling.
But Caravaggio took that really subtle tool and he basically turned it into a weapon.
He really did. I mean, the term art historians actually had to coin for this new style was tenebrism.
Tenebrism.
Yeah, it comes from the Italian word tenebroso, which literally means dark, gloomy, or mysterious. Because, Caravaggio wasn't interested in subtly modeling a cheekbone to make it look round.
No, definitely not.
He was interested in plunging like 90% of the canvas into a total abyss.
When I was reading through the source material, I couldn't help but draw a line to how we light television today.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about the high Renaissance tradition before Caravaggio. It feels exactly like a classic multicam sitcom.
Oh, like a brightly lit soundstage.
Exactly. The lighting is perfectly even across the entire set. It's balanced, it's safe, and it's mimicking a bright afternoon so you can see every single actor clearly.
Nobody is hiding in the shadows on a sitcom.
Right. But Caravaggio's tenebrism, is it fair to say he's the 17th century equivalent of a gritty, high-contrast, prestige TV drama?
Oh, absolutely. That is spot on. He gives you one harsh artificial spotlight and absolute nothing else.
But I have to wonder, how is he physically pulling this off? Because it's 1600. He couldn't just throw a softbox light on a set.
Right, there's no electricity. But the physical execution is actually one of the most compelling parts of his story. Caravaggio essentially turned his own studio into a massive camera obscura.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. Contemporary accounts tell us he actually painted his studio walls black. And he intentionally boarded up the windows.
He boarded up his own windows.
He did. He left only a tiny hole in the ceiling, or really high up on a wall, just to let in a single concentrated shaft of sunlight.
Wow.
So he wasn't imagining this dramatic lighting in his head. He was engineering it physically in the room with his models.
So he is literally plunging himself into the dark just to paint.
He is. And what's fascinating here is how he changed the physical chemistry of the canvas to match that darkness.
Oh, right. The priming.
Yeah, because before Caravaggio, the standard practice was to prime a canvas with a light, warm tone, maybe, a soft gray or a pale beige, and then you build the colors on top of that.
Like painting on a bright foundation.
Exactly. But Caravaggio started priming his canvases with a dark, earthy brown, sometimes almost pitch black.
He's starting with the shadows.
Yes. He built the shadows directly into the foundation of the painting. He didn't paint the darkness over the light, he dragged the light out of the darkness.
Which creates an entirely different psychological effect for you as the viewer. I mean, when you strip away the sprawling landscapes and those mathematically perfect buildings in the background.
You remove the escape routes.
Exactly. You are removing every possible distraction.
What's fascinating here is how the darkness functions as a literal psychological track. Like, in a standard Renaissance painting, if a scene is too intense, you can just let your eyes wander. Go look at the beautiful trees in the background.
Look at the nice clouds.
Right, but Caravaggio denies you that escape. The pitch-black void forces your eye exactly where he wants it. You are locked into a really claustrophobic, intimate moment of human drama.
The shadows doing the work.
The shadow isn't just an absence of paint. It is a physical presence in the room. It makes the scene feel unbearably tense.
It's incredibly cinematic. But, theory is one thing. Actually executing it on a massive scale for a public audience is another.
Very true.
Which means we really need to look at the painting that made him a superstar. I'm talking about his breakout public commission from around 1599-1600, The Calling of St. Matthew.
Oh, yes. Housed in the Contemporary Chapel in Rome. A painting that honestly redefined what religious art could be.
Redefined is an understatement. The scale of it is massive. And it depicts this huge biblical moment when Jesus Christ points at Matthew, who, by the way, was a wealthy, corrupt tax collector.
Not a great guy.
Right. And Christ calls him to abandon his life and become an apostle. But here's where it gets really interesting. You hear biblical calling and you immediately picture like a grand temple or maybe a sunlit street in ancient Jerusalem, right?
Angels in the clouds, pristine robes, all that.
Exactly. But Caravaggio sets this monumental divine event in a dingy, shadow-filled tavern.
It's practically unholy.
And he dresses the subjects in contemporary 17th century street clothes.
That's the kicker.
That part completely blew my mind. I mean, Matthew and his cronies are huddled around a table, greedily counting coins, and they're wearing velvet doublets, plumed hats, silk.
They look like the guys you'd see drinking in a Roman pub that very afternoon.
Exactly. He drags this ancient sacred story completely out of antiquity and just drops it right into the modern, everyday world of his time.
And you really have to notice what happens when Christ actually enters the frame. He steps into the room from the far right side of the canvas with St. Peter. But Caravaggio does something completely unthinkable for the era.
What's that?
He almost entirely obscures the Son of God in the shadows.
Yeah, you can barely even see him.
Right. The true protagonist entering that tavern isn't a figure at all. It is the physical manifestation of the light itself.
That stark, thick, diagonal beam of light.
Yes, it slices right across the upper right of the canvas, just cutting completely through the gloom of the room.
And it strikes the faces of the men at the table, illuminating Matthew. And Matthew is pointing to his own chest with this just fantastic expression of pure shock. Like, wait, you mean me?
It's a great reaction. The light is doing incredible narrative work there. But to truly appreciate the genius of this composition, you have to look at how Caravaggio interacted with the physical space of the Contemporary Chapel itself.
The actual room it's hanging in.
Exactly. Because the painted light source on the canvas, that diagonal beam you mentioned, perfectly aligns with the actual physical window located directly above the altar in that specific chapel.
Wait, so if you are standing in the room in Rome...
When you stand in the chapel in the late afternoon, the real sunlight filtering into the church visually merges with the painted sunlight on the canvas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Caravaggio blurred the boundary between the viewer's physical reality and the painted spiritual reality. He's suggesting that the divine light isn't trapped in a frame, it's spilling into the room with you.
That is literally 4D theater, centuries before anyone had a name for it.
It's genius.
And he pairs that amazing lighting trick with an incredibly loaded visual reference. Because if you trace the beam of light, it leads right down the arm of Christ to his pointing hand.
Right.
And the wrist of that hand is totally relaxed. It's just hanging there limp.
Which is a direct visual quotation of Adam's hand from Michelangelo's Creation of Adam on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
Now, hold on a second. I have to play skeptic here for a minute.
Okay, go for it.
Are we absolutely sure this isn't just modern art historians projecting deep meaning onto a total coincidence? Like, did people in 1600 Rome actually look at that painted hand and immediately catch the reference?
Oh, they absolutely caught the reference. You have to remember, the Sistine Chapel was the undisputed gold standard of artistic achievement in Rome.
Everybody knew it.
Any educated patron, any clergyman or fellow artist, they would know that ceiling intimately. So by deliberately copying that exact iconic gesture, Caravaggio is making a really bold theological statement.
Okay, what's he saying?
He's signaling that Christ is the new Adam. Where the first Adam brought a physical creation and ultimately the fall of man, this new Adam is bringing a spiritual rebirth to Matthew.
Wow, that is a brilliant way to communicate massive theological concepts without having to spell them out.
It's visual poetry.
And the light also literally divides the canvas, right? The right side, where Jesus stands in the dark, is the eternal world.
Yeah.
And then the left side, where the men are obsessing over their money and their coins, is the temporary earthly world. So that light beam is the bridge just crashing those two worlds together.
Which perfectly transitions us into the deep controversy surrounding Caravaggio's work. Because, we know how he manipulated the shadows and the light, but we really need to examine what that harsh spotlight was actually exposing.
Because what he chose to expose was considered entirely scandalous for the time.
Oh, extremely scandalous.
To understand why, we have to remember the political climate, right? This is the era of the Counter-Reformation.
The Catholic Church is battling the rise of Protestantism.
Exactly. And they're using art as a massive propaganda tool. They want awe-inspiring, pious, totally heavenly figures to remind people of the majesty of the church, but Caravaggio just refuses to play along.
He took the concept of realism to a level that the church establishment found deeply, deeply uncomfortable.
He literally went out into the streets of Rome and hired the most marginalized, gritty people he could find.
Real people.
Yeah, we aren't talking about wealthy merchants posing as saints. He hired beggars, he hired known prostitutes, he hired aggressive brawlers he met in taverns.
The underbelly of society.
And he used them to model for the most revered figures in Christianity, apostles, saints, even the Virgin Mary. And the craziest part is he didn't sanitize them for the canvas.
He painted them as they were.
Right. He painted their dirty fingernails. He painted their wrinkled, sunburned foreheads. He painted their swollen, calloused feet.
And he placed those dirty feet right at eye level on the altar walls.
Exactly. Right where the priests would be looking. So what does this all mean? I look at this and I have to wonder if Caravaggio was just, an arrogant provocateur.
Just trying to stir the pot.
Yeah. Was he essentially the punk rocker of 17th century Rome, just trying to shock the establishment because he hated authority? Or was there a deeper narrative reason for using these specific people?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it goes far beyond cheap shock value. I mean, Caravaggio understood that extreme cinematic lighting actually requires a subject with real psychological weight to anchor it.
Oh, that makes sense.
He wasn't just being rebellious, he was elevating everyday, street-level grit into high tragedy. Take the example mentioned in the source material. Judith beheading Holofernes.
Right, a biblical story that had been painted dozens of times before, usually looking very noble and heroic.
Precisely. In earlier Renaissance versions, Judith often looks serene, almost completely detached from the intense violence she's committing.
Like she's not even sweating.
Right. But Caravaggio plunges the background into a signature black void, which pushes the horrific violence right up against the picture plane.
It's practically spilling into your lap as the viewer.
Exactly. And the harsh spotlight doesn't flatter Judith or Holofernes. It exposes them. It catches the terrifying spray of blood. It highlights the deep grimace of physical disgust and exertion on Judith's face.
She is leaning back, trying to keep the blood off her dress.
While Holofernes' eyes are practically bursting from his skull in sheer, unadulterated terror.
It doesn't look like a polite biblical allegory anymore. It looks like you've just walked into a horrific crime scene.
And that immediacy is exactly the point. By combining these hyper-realistic, flawed, everyday models with his unforgiving spotlight, he made these ancient narratives feel urgently, dangerously real.
He brought them down to earth?
Yes. Caravaggio was basically arguing that the divine isn't just found in pristine clouds or, polished marble halls. Grace actually matters most when it reaches into the darkest, dirtiest taverns and alleyways.
The grit is what makes the grace meaningful. Because, if everyone is already an idealized, perfect angel, salvation doesn't really carry any weight.
There's nothing to be saved from.
Exactly. But seeing a weathered, exhausted peasant actually experience a divine calling that actually moves people.
But, you also have to acknowledge the man behind the brush here. because his insistence on this unfiltered realism wasn't just some abstract artistic philosophy.
No, it really wasn't.
It was a direct reflection of his own chaotic, often very violent reality.
The biography of Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio is definitely not the story of a quiet, pious monk painting in a cloister.
Not even close.
He was volatile, he carried a sword illegally, he got into constant street fights, and his life was basically this cycle of massive artistic success followed by total self-destruction.
A very dangerous guy to be around.
The darkest point actually came in 1606. An argument over a tennis match or possibly an unpaid debt, depending on the historical source you rate it, escalated into a full-blown duel.
And it didn't end well.
No. Caravaggio murdered a man named Ranuccio Tomassoni, and he had to flee Rome immediately to avoid the death penalty.
So his career in Rome, which was the absolute center of the art world at the time, was just over in a flash.
He spent the last 4 years of his life constantly on the run. He's moving from Naples to Malta to Sicily, always looking over his shoulder, and he's painting some of his most desperate, psychologically intense works while in exile.
Just running from the law and his own demons.
Yeah. And he died at the incredibly young age of 38 under pretty mysterious circumstances, likely from a combination of illness and an infected wound from, you guessed it, yet another brawl.
It's tragic. Yet despite that incredibly brief, volatile window of work, his impact on the globe was permanent.
The debt that the history of visual media owes him is staggering. I mean, without Caravaggio, there is no Baroque art.
He spawned an entire generation of folly.
The Caravaggisti. You look at the deep, melancholic shadows in Rembrandt's portraits. You look at the theatrical, sweeping grandeur of Peter Paul Rubens, the stark, unflinching realism of Diego Velázquez,
All of them.
or the incredible, visceral vengeance in the works of Artemisia Gentileschi, who actually took Caravaggio's darkness and weaponized it to process her own real-life trauma.
It's a massive legacy.
Every single one of them owes a huge debt to this brawling Italian exile who just dared to turn off the lights.
This raises an important question, though, about why his specific technique still dictates how we consume visual media today. Like, why do directors and photographers and painters still rely on tenebrism 400 years later?
Why does it still work?
Because Caravaggio understood a foundational truth about human perception. You cannot truly appreciate the emotional weight of the light unless you have first surrendered to the darkness.
Wow.
The shadows in a Caravaggio painting aren't just empty space. They actively reach out, they grab you by the collar, and they drag you into the reality of the moment.
They completely demand your participation. And, that brings us right back to you listening to this deep dive right now.
Why should they care today?
Right. Why does understanding a 17th century Italian painting technique matter in your daily life? Because visual storytelling is everywhere.
It's inescapable.
So the next time you're scrolling through a gallery of modern photography or pausing a frame of your favorite moody, prestige television drama, or even looking at a comic book panel, pay attention to the shadows.
Notice the dark.
Look at what the artist is deliberately choosing to hide in the pitch black. Because the darkness is doing just as much heavy lifting as the spotlight to pull you into the emotion of the scene.
The shadows absolutely dictate the terms of the reality. And I really want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, kind of building on this idea of Caravaggio's intense, uncompromising realism.
Okay, let's hear it.
We are living in an era right now where anyone can prompt an AI to generate the most mathematically flawless, perfectly lit, blemish-free human forms in a matter of seconds.
Oh yeah, completely perfect images.
Right. We have Instagram filters that erase every pore, every wrinkle, every ounce of exhaustion from our faces. We are essentially mass-producing the exact kind of safe, idealized Renaissance harmony that Caravaggio fought so hard to destroy.
That is a fascinating parallel.
So the question is, in our relentless pursuit of visual perfection, are we actually moving backward?
Are we losing something?
Exactly. Are we sanitizing our storytelling so much that we are losing the dirty fingernails, the calloused feet, and the raw, uncomfortable grit that actually makes us human?
That is a phenomenal question to end on, because the darkness, paradoxically, is what always exposes the truth. We want to extend a huge thank you to Anita Louise Art for the incredible research and insights that really anchored our discussion today.
Such a great resource.
If you want to dive deeper into art education and explore the stories of more visionary creators, be sure to check out her blog and artwork. You can find links and subscribe to their free newsletter to become part of their community.
Highly recommend it.
And for us, make sure to subscribe to our podcast, YouTube, and newsletter, and check out our blog for more great content just like this. We will see you next time, deep in the shadows.